Good morning, South Point Church. We are continuing our morning devotions in the book of James. James is so packed with incredible verses that we decided to just go verse by verse by verse. So I have James chapter number 1, verse number 19, where the Bible says, "My dearly beloved, let everyone be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." So that's my verse today, but I think I have to put it in context of how James was writing it. Chapter number 1 of the book of James is all about enduring trials or enduring these diverse temptations. You remember in verse number 2, it says, "Count it all joy when we fall into these differences of temptations and trials, knowing this, that the trying of our faith works patience." As we get to verse number 12, it says, "Blessed is the man that prolongs these temptations, endures these temptations, for that man will receive the crown of life from the Lord if we endure these temptations." So when we get to verse number 19, he's still talking in context of going through these trials. And here's what he says. He said, "My dearly beloved," he said, "listen, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath." What is he talking about? This verse right here really needs to be applied in all of our lives as Christ followers. It is one of the most principal verses in the Bible. It means that every man should be very quick to hear, to get all the information that we need to get concerning the trial that we're in. We need to get all of the information. I talked about last week, listening to God. If any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men. So really, as we're going through these trials, in order for us to endure them, we need to hear from God how to handle these trials. Let every man be swift to hear. Get as much information. Sit down with the Lord. Try to understand. Hey, listen, if you're in a marriage or a relationship, before you judge somebody, get as much information as you possibly can. Because we're not good at judging, you see, because we don't have the information. He says, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak. You know, sometimes we just speak before we listen. Sometimes we just go by our emotions and quickly speak before we hear. And God says, man, you do yourself service if you are slow to speak. Get all the information before you ever open your mouth, before you'll ever judge. And then finally he says, slow to anger. Anger is usually the first thing we do. We get in a situation, we want to blame God for the trial that we're in. We want to just be angry because we're going through a difficult situation or season in our lives. We are quick to anger. We are quick to get bitter. We are quick not to forgive. We are quick to rash out. We are quick to yell, quick to scream. And God says, man, that anger that you have on the inside concerning something that's going to help you in your Christian walk, he said, the wrath of man does not work the righteousness of God. And if you want the righteousness of God to work in your life, you must fulfill this verse where you're going to be swift to hear, slow to speak, and 100% slow to anger. You can solve a lot of problems in your marriages if you take this verse. We can solve a lot of problems in the church house if we submit to this verse. We can solve a lot of problems in our country if we submit to this verse. Let me just say it one more time. Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and 100% slow to anger. For the anger of man works not the righteousness of God. Have a blessed day today.